If you were to scroll through my phone, you'd see a string of missed calls and text messages, all from numbers saved under mom, dad, Lynn sis, or tongue bro. At first glance, it might look like we're a close-knit family, always checking in, always connected. But if you actually opened any of those message threads, you'd notice a pattern so obvious it almost hurts. Can you help me with this? Do you have time to look at my resume? Can you send me a little money until payday? Are you coming home this weekend? The faucet is leaking again. Never, how are you? Or I miss you. Or, just wanted to hear your voice. And I think that's what finally broke me. I'm the oldest daughter in a Vietnamese family, which if you know, you know. There's a certain expectation. You're the reliable one, the one who sets the example, the one who's both fiercely independent and endlessly available. I was the first to go to university, the first to get a steady job, the first to buy a car, the first to move out. My parents didn't say it out loud, but I could hear it in their voices every time they introduced me to neighbors or distant relatives. This is our eldest, the one who takes care of us all. And I tried. God, I tried. For years I said yes to everything. When my brother failed his university entrance exam the first time, I was the one who found him a tutor and paid for the sessions. When my sister decided to backpack through Europe on a whim, I was the one who quietly transferred her enough money to cover her flights, pretending it was a gift for her birthday so our parents wouldn't scold her for being reckless. When my mom got sick and needed to see a specialist in the city, I took 2 days off work, drove her to every appointment, sat in sterile waiting rooms for hours, and then drove her back home, all without complaint. I did it because I love them, because that's what you do when you're family, right? That's what I told myself every time I felt the sting of being taken for granted. That's what I whispered to myself during long, lonely nights in my apartment, when the only calls I got were requests for help, never invitations to dinner or a simple, I miss you. I told myself that love is giving without expecting anything in return. But lately I've started to wonder if that's really true, or if it's just something people like me tell ourselves to make the loneliness feel noble instead of pathetic. The breaking point came about a month ago, on a rainy Saturday morning. I was curled up on my sofa, a rare day off with nothing planned. I just made a cup of tea and was about to start a new book when my phone rang. It was my mom. I hesitated for a moment, maybe, just maybe, this would be the call where she asked about my life, about my new job, about whether I was eating well or sleeping enough. I answered, trying to keep the hope out of my voice. Kana, are you busy? No, Mom, what's up? She sighed, and I could hear the background noise of the market, vendors shouting, the clatter of plastic stools, the hum of scooters. Your dad's motorbike broke down again. He's at the repair shop, but they say it'll cost $2 million. Can you transfer it to him? He says he'll pay you back next week. I closed my eyes, took a slow breath. Okay, I'll do it now. Thank you, Khan. I'll tell him. He's so lucky to have a daughter like you. And just like that, she hung up. No, how are you? No, sorry to bother you. No, I love you. Just the transaction as always. I transferred the money, sat back and stared at my phone. I scrolled through our message history. The last 5 conversations were all requests for money or help. I scrolled up months and months of the same. Not a single message asking about my life, my work, my friends, my dreams. I checked my siblings' threads. My sister had sent me a photo from a party last week, but only after asking if I could help her with her visa paperwork. My brother's last message. Can you help me pay my phone bill? I'll pay you back. I put my phone down and just sat there, letting the silence fill the room. I thought about the last time I'd seen my family in person, a family dinner at my parents' house, where I'd spent most of the evening in the kitchen, cooking and cleaning while everyone else laughed in the living room. When I finally sat down, no one noticed. When I left early because I had work the next day, no one walked me to the door. I thought about all the birthdays I'd remembered, all the gifts I'd carefully chosen, all the times I'd rearranged my schedule to be there for them. And I realized with a kind of dull ache that I couldn't remember the last time any of them had done the same for me. I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I say something? Why didn't I set boundaries? I wish I could say I hadn't tried. I had. A few months earlier, I'd told my mom that I was feeling overwhelmed, that I needed some space, that maybe they could ask my siblings for help sometimes instead of always coming to me. She'd laughed and said, "You're the strong one, Khan. Your brother and sister, they're still figuring things out. You're the only one we can rely on." I tried to talk to my sister too. She'd rolled her eyes and said, "You don't have kids, you don't have a husband, of course you have more time and money than the rest of us." Maybe they were right. Maybe I was being selfish for wanting more. Maybe I should just accept my role and stop complaining. But that rainy Saturday, something inside me shifted. I realized that I didn't have to keep giving until there was nothing left of me. I realized that love wasn't supposed to feel like an obligation, like a debt that could never be repaid. I realized that I was tired, bone-deep, soul-weary tired, of being the family's safety net. So I made a decision. I wouldn't make a scene. I wouldn't send a dramatic message or confront anyone. I would just quietly step back. I would stop answering every call, stop replying to every request, stop offering help before it was even asked for. I would give myself permission to be unavailable, to put myself first for once. The first week was harder than I expected. My phone buzzed constantly. My mom asking if I could pick up some groceries for her, my brother needing a ride to a job interview, my sister wanting advice on her taxes. I ignored the messages, telling myself it was just for a few days just to see what would happen. First, they didn't seem to notice. My brother texted our family group chat, "Anyone free to drive me tomorrow?" My mom replied, "Ask your sister." I didn't respond. The message hung there unanswered. A few days later, my mom called. I let it ring. She called again. And again. Finally, she left a voicemail. "Con, are you okay? Call me back when you can." I listened to it twice, searching for any hint of concern for me as a person, not just as a resource. Maybe I was being unfair, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was more worried about the inconvenience than about me. By the end of the week, the calls slowed. My siblings stopped asking. The group chat went quiet. For the first time in years, I had whole days to myself, no requests, no obligations, just silence. It was both liberating and terrifying. I found myself wandering around my apartment, unsure what to do with all the free time. I started reading again, taking long walks, cooking meals just for myself. I reconnected with old friends, people I hadn't seen in months because I was always too busy with family stuff. I realized how much of my life I'd put on hold, waiting for a kind of love and appreciation that never came. But as the days turned into weeks, I started to wonder, how long would it take for them to notice I was really gone? Would they ever reach out just to check on me without needing something? Or had I truly become invisible, valuable only for what I could give? I didn't have answers. All I knew was that, for the first time in a long time, I was living for myself. And that was both the scariest and most exhilarating thing I'd ever done. The silence didn't last forever. It's funny how when you grow up in a family that's always loud, always bustling, always demanding, always needing, you think that silence will be peaceful, that it will feel like freedom. And in some ways it was. But it also left so much space for thoughts to echo, for doubts to creep in. About 2 weeks after I started my quiet retreat, I got a message from my dad. He almost never texted me directly. It was always through my mom, or he'd just hand her the phone and let her do the talking. But this time it was his name that flashed on my screen. The message was short, almost awkward. "Are you okay? Mom says you're not answering. Let us know." No requests, no demands. Just a simple check-in. For a moment I felt a pang of guilt, sharp and unexpected. I could picture him sitting at the kitchen table, fumbling with his old phone, squinting at the tiny screen, probably asking my mom for help with the buttons. I thought about answering just a quick, "I'm fine, just busy." But something held me back. I wanted more. I wanted them to notice not just that I wasn't available, but that maybe, just maybe, they'd been using me as a crutch for too long. I let the message sit, unread, for a day. Then 2. I checked it constantly, rereading those 3 sentences, searching for something deeper. Was he really worried? Or was this just another way to get me to respond so they could ask for something else? I hated that I was so cynical, hated that I couldn't just accept a simple gesture at face value. But years of being the family's go-to person had taught me to be cautious, to read between the lines. On the 3rd day my sister called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. I let it ring twice before picking up. "Chi." Her tone was tentative, not the usual breezy confidence she reserved for everyone else. "Are you okay? Mom and Dad are kind of freaking out. You're not sick, are you?" I hesitated, weighing my words. "No, I'm not sick. I just needed some space." She was quiet for a moment. Is this because of the money? Or like something else? I almost laughed. Of course she'd go straight to the practical. It's not about the money. It's just, I needed a break. From everything. She sighed and I could hear the clink of a spoon against a mug. She was probably at her kitchen table, making coffee, her toddler babbling in the background. Look, I know we ask you for a lot. But that's just how families are, right? We help each other out. I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. Do we though? Because sometimes it feels like I'm the only one helping. She bristled. That's not fair. I help too. I babysit for mom and dad all the time. And I helped you move last year, remember? I did remember. She'd shown up 2 hours late, dropped off a bag of snacks, and left before we'd even finished unpacking the kitchen. But I didn't say that. Instead, I just said, I know. I need things to be different. I can't keep doing this. She was quiet again and then she said softer. Okay, I get it. I'll tell mom and dad you're just busy. But don't stay away too long, okay? They're not good at, talking about feelings. I almost smiled. That was the closest thing to an apology I was going to get from her. We said goodbye and I hung up, feeling both lighter and heavier at the same time. A few days later, I got a message from my mom. It was a photo of her and my dad at a family gathering, my cousin's wedding, I realized. Everyone was dressed up, beaming at the camera, holding plates of food. Underneath she'd written, "Wish you were here." No explanation, no guilt trip, just those 4 words. It was the first time in years she'd sent me a message that wasn't a request. I stared at the photo for a long time. I tried to imagine what it would have been like to be there, if I would have felt included, or if I would have been stuck in the kitchen again washing dishes while everyone else danced. I tried to remember the last time I'd gone to a family event and actually enjoyed myself, instead of feeling like I was performing some invisible duty. That weekend, I met up with my friend Mai for coffee. She'd been my roommate in university, the kind of friend who never judged, who always listened without trying to fix things. We sat by the window watching the rain streak down the glass, and I told her everything. How tired I was, how guilty I felt, how freeing it was to finally put myself first. She nodded, stirring her coffee. It's okay to want more from your family. It doesn't make you selfish. It just makes you human. I blinked back, tears, surprised by how much I needed to hear that. I just feel so empty. Like I spent all these years giving, and now that I've stopped, I don't know who I am anymore. Mai reached across the table, squeezing my hand. You're more than what you do for other people. You're allowed to have needs, too. I went home that day feeling a little less alone. I started making small changes, saying yes to invitations from friends, signing up for a cooking class, even booking a solo trip to Dalat for the next month. For the first time in a long time, I was making plans for myself, not just fitting my life around everyone else's needs. But my family didn't disappear. They kept reaching out, though less often and with fewer requests. Sometimes my mom would send a photo of her garden, or my dad would forward a funny video he'd seen online. My sister started texting me just to chat. Nothing urgent, nothing pressing. It was awkward at first, like we were learning a new language together, one that didn't revolve around favors or obligations. One night, about a month after I'd started my disappearance, my dad called. This time I answered. "Kana," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I know we ask you for a lot, maybe too much, but we love you. We just don't always know how to show it." I felt something in my chest loosen just a little. "I know, Dad. I love you too. I just need things to be different." "We'll try," he said, and I believed him. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, feeling the weight of years of unspoken expectations start to lift. I didn't know what the future would look like, or if my family would ever really change. But for the first time, I felt like I was allowed to hope. The weeks that followed felt like uncharted territory. I was cautious, almost superstitious, about this new distance I'd created with my family. Would it last? Would things really change? Or would everything slip back to the way it had always been? I didn't know. But I was determined to hold my ground, even as the guilt still tugged at me in quiet moments. I started to notice small but meaningful shifts. My brother Tung, who used to call only when he needed a loan or a ride, began texting me about trivial things. A funny meme, a new song he liked, a photo of his dog. Sometimes he'd ask how I was doing, and though it felt stilted at first, I appreciated the effort. My sister Lynn sent me recipes she thought I'd like, and even invited me to her apartment for dinner. No strings attached, no hidden agenda. The first time I almost didn't go, afraid it would turn into another favor in disguise. But it didn't. We cooked together, laughed over burnt spring rolls, and for the first time in years I felt like her sister, not her safety net. My parents were slower to adapt. My mother especially struggled with the new boundaries. She'd still call sometimes, her voice soft and unsure, asking if I wanted to come home for dinner or help her with the garden. Sometimes I'd say yes, sometimes no. Each time I chose myself, I felt a mixture of pride and fear. Pride for standing my ground, fear that I was letting her down. But I reminded myself, love isn't measured by how much of yourself you sacrifice. One Sunday afternoon, I decided to visit my parents. I hadn't been home in over 2 months, the longest stretch I'd ever gone without seeing them. I brought a small cake from my favorite bakery, a peace offering and a symbol of the new boundaries I was trying to build. Not coming empty-handed, but not coming to fix or rescue either. The house looked the same as always, the gate creaking on its hinges, the garden wild and overgrown. My mom met me at the door, her face a mixture of relief and worry. She hugged me tightly, then stepped back, searching my face. "You look thinner," she said, as always. "I'm fine, Mom," I smiled, handing her the cake. We sat in the kitchen drinking tea. My dad joined us, and for a while we just talked about the weather, about the neighbors, about the new TV drama my mom liked. No one asked me for anything. It felt strange, almost unnatural, but also peaceful. After a while my mom cleared her throat. "Kana, I know we depend on you a lot. Maybe too much. I'm sorry if we made you feel like you had to do everything." I stared at her, surprised. My mother was not one for apologies. She was strong, stubborn, proud. This was as close as she would ever come to admitting she'd been wrong. I nodded, swallowing a lump in my throat. "I just needed some space, Mom. I want to help, but I can't be the only one. I need to live my own life, too." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "We understand. We'll try to do better." My dad nodded, his eyes soft. "You're our daughter, not our servant." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of years of unspoken expectations hanging between us. But it felt lighter now, less suffocating. That evening as I left, my mom pressed a container of food into my hands, as she always did. But this time she didn't say, "Come home more often," or "We need you." She just smiled and said, "Take care of yourself, Khan." Driving home, I felt something shift inside me. For so long I defined myself by what I could do for others, by how much I could give. Now I was learning to define myself by who I was, not just what I did. I kept making small changes. I spent weekends exploring new parts of the city, taking myself out to dinner, reading in cafes. I went to Dalat alone as I planned, hiking through pine forests and drinking coffee in quiet mountain towns. I sent my family photos, not to make them feel guilty, but to share a piece of my new life. Sometimes they replied, sometimes not. That was okay. Slowly I started to feel whole again. I realized that I could love my family without losing myself, that I could be there for them without sacrificing my own happiness. It wasn't easy, and some days were harder than others. But for the first time, I felt like I was living my own story, not just playing a supporting role in theirs. One night, as I sat on my balcony watching the city lights, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mom. "Miss you. Let's have dinner soon, just because." I smiled, feeling tears prick my eyes. Maybe things would never be perfect. Maybe my family would always struggle to express their feelings, to ask for what they need without expecting too much. But we were learning together. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. It's been nearly a year since I quietly stepped back, since I drew that invisible line between what I could give and what I needed for myself. Sometimes when I look back, I almost don't recognize the person I used to be. The one who answered every call, who dropped everything at the first sign of trouble, who thought love meant never saying no. Now my life feels like it belongs to me. I still see my family, still share meals and laughter in the small, ordinary moments that make up our days. But the desperation is gone, replaced by a gentle, mutual respect. My siblings have grown. Tung started handling his own paperwork, Lynn began budgeting instead of asking for loans, and sometimes they even check in on me first. My parents are softer with me now. They still worry, still fuss over whether I'm eating enough or working too hard, but it comes from a place of love, not expectation. When I visit, my mom tells me stories about her childhood, stories she never had time to share when I was younger. My dad sometimes sits beside me in the garden, both of us content in the quiet, no words needed. I've learned that boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges. They allow us to meet each other as equals, to love without resentment, to give without losing ourselves. My family and I are still learning, still stumbling, but we're moving forward together. There are still days when the old guilt creeps in, when I wonder if I'm being selfish, if I should do more. But then I remember how empty I felt before, how invisible. I remind myself that I deserve care too, that I am more than just what I can do for others. Sometimes, late at night, my phone lights up with a message from my mom.
Con ngủ ngon nhé. Mẹ yêu con.
Sleep well, my child. I love you. And for the first time in a long time, I believe it. Not because of what I've done or what I can give, but simply because I am her daughter, and that is enough.